Good afternoon. We will now convene our afternoon work session. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Vice Mayor Curtis.
Present.
Councilman Hobbs.
Here.
Councilman Moffitt.
Present.
Councilwoman Schmidt.
Here.
Councilwoman Sneed.
Here.
Councilman Tuck.
Present.
Mayor Wallace.
Here. We convened early today to allow us to handle a closed session item which involves outside counsel who is only available at this certain time. As such, we will vote upon our closed session through motion, move to the Lawson Conference Room, conduct the closed session on one topic, and then we'll recess the closed session to return to the council chambers for our regular afternoon work session. Then, at the appropriate time, we will reconvene closed session in Lawson Conference Room again, and we'll adjourn the meeting from there. I'd now like to request a motion to convene a closed session pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2, 3711.A.1.3.5, and 7 to discuss appointments as listed on the agenda, to discuss the evaluation of the city manager, the city attorney, and the clerk of council, to discuss a personnel matter involving the HRHA, and to discuss or consider the acquisition of real property for a public purpose in the Coliseum Central area, and for the disposition of publicly held real property in the Northampton Coliseum Central area, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the city, to consult with legal counsel concerning Hampton Bay Days, a VHDA matter, and concerning the zoning ordinance requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel, to consult with legal counsel pertaining to actual or probable litigation where such counsel or consultation and briefing in open meeting will adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the city council, and to have a discussion concerning a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the business or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in Hampton. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. No, I'll call for a motion and then a second.
So moved. Second.
Now call the roll, Madam Clerk, please.
Vice Mayor Curtis.
Aye.
Councilman Hobbs.
Aye.
Councilman Moffitt.
Aye.
Councilwoman Schmidt.
Aye.
Councilwoman Sneed.
Aye.
Councilman Tuck.
Aye.
Mayor Wallace.
Aye. We will now convene in the Lawson Conference Room. Ready for the neighborhood centers?
I'm ready. I do want to introduce the item before you just call Jim Wilson. You can say Jim Wilson's going to make the presentation, but I understand the manager wants to say something.
We'll return from our recess, and we now have done that, and we're now in the chambers again to start our afternoon session again. We will consider item 1 on the agenda, which is a briefing on neighborhood centers, which I understand Mr. Wilson is going to be making a presentation, and Madam Mayor has some comments prior to that.
And yes, before I do that, I just want to share that I received an email notification from Member McCormick that despite all efforts, today's meeting is not being streamed live. Granicus overnighted some new equipment that needed to be received, and it was supposed to be here by 10, but it is not. We are directing people to a page that contains prior meetings, and I notice that today's meeting will be posted as soon as possible, hopefully by tomorrow. The PEG TV is going to give us a DVD and post to YouTube as well. So we are making every effort. So someone tries to turn it on internet, they can see it on TV, but if they try to turn on internet and wonder what happened, I just wanted to publicly disclose what happened. Mr. Wilson's going to give you an update on neighborhood centers. Today, as most people will recall, about 2 years ago, in the budget process, I recommended closure of Old Hampton Community Center for a variety of reasons. Largely the lack of utilization of the center component. The pool, of course, we were already pursuing a replacement pool, either as part of a larger aquatic center or otherwise updating the pool, because this facility is about 43 years old and it really needed to be renovated or a new facility constructed. In terms of the community center component, we weren't having a high utilization. At that time, 2 years ago, council suggested that we engage the neighborhood and try to find out how we could preserve some community services for them without necessarily building a larger community center that may not be needed. As we were working with Old Hampton on these issues, unfortunately, a tornado hit the Fox Hill, what I call a neighborhood center. It wasn't officially a neighborhood center, but it acted like a neighborhood center for the Fox Hill community out at Grenland Park. And of course, when that tornado hit and took away that asset for the neighborhood, council asked us to engage with that neighborhood as well to see how we might replicate and or provide the services that they had come to very much value in the form of that building. In the time since those two events, we've worked very, very actively with both neighborhoods to try to achieve what we think is a fair and appropriate approach. And Mr. Wilson is going to share all of that publicly for your benefit, as well as for those who have not been following it quite as closely. What you're going to see today obviously has been shared with each of those neighborhoods, but we thought it was very appropriate for the rest of the city to understand sort of the progress that has been made in both of those areas. So with that, Mr. Wilson will walk you through each.
Thank you. What I'd like to do today is just share you where we are on both the neighborhood proposals, both for Old Hampton and Fox Hill. Going back with Old Hampton first, like we've stressed before, it is 42 years old. We're dealing with a number of issues right now. We've got a lot of mechanical problems, electrical problems, plumbing problems, and roof leaks in several locations. We've been repairing them. Let me stress that it is safe to use during the summer, and that it is our time frame. Our summer programs kick off next week, and we're emphasizing that. But we are working with the facilities maintenance staff right now and keeping the building intact, and we will address some future concerns soon. We do have ADA issues. I do have some safety issues in the building, and we don't have adequate parking to meet the needs of the programs that we're trying to offer at this time. We do have building concerns, like I've stressed before, in the pool area, in the pump room. We're dealing with a lot of safety issues and maintenance issues. The roof itself, at times you have standing water, and like I've stressed before, it leaks at a number of locations, and you can see the rust on some of the outside perimeter walls. Inside, addressed with the leak concerns, either at the light fixtures or in the air conditioning ducts, the mold and mildew, the wear in the doors and windows, locker rooms. There's just been a number of issues that really are not cost effective to repair at this time. Now, the overall plan, like Mary stated, we mentioned 2 years ago that we'd like to close the building, and we have been working with the neighborhood. We've met with the neighborhood, but the plan is that we will close Old Hampton Community Center in September of this year after our summer programs. Our proposal is to build a neighborhood center, and we're going to go through a transition to give everyone some opportunities. We were working with Ms. Little and the Old Hampton Neighborhood Association to find out what the needs are, and as we go through this process, but we're going to work with them on the design of a neighborhood facility, and I'll share that with you in a few minutes. This can expand depending on the outcome of the aquatics decision in the future. But in the meantime, before we close down the facility, we will put 2 double-wide trailer classrooms out there, and we'll upgrade the exterior facilities. And what does that mean? We'll look at the outdoor basketball courts, we'll look at the playground, we'll look at Grant Street Park. We'll use a number of different opportunities to help that neighborhood as we go through the transition. The biggest impact is going to be the pool, and we're not going to have the pool. So what does that leave the citizens of Hampton? It'll leave them the pool at the Hampton Aquatic Center, and that is the same size pool as that at Old Hampton, 25 meters by 43 feet wide, 6 lanes. The Aquatic Center does not have the room to accommodate bleachers and spectators, but as we go through the transition period, as we decide what we're going to do for the aquatics facility, it'll meet our needs. We will be giving priority to Hampton citizens, Hampton swim teams, Hampton City School swim teams, and then we will do that on a rental basis after that. Be open 7 days a week. That'll be the same size. Fort Monroe Pool is 25 feet by 35 feet. It has 4 lanes, and it has 0 entry. But those will be the 2 facilities that'll be open to our public. Now, as we go through this transition period, with the age of the facilities, we will be purchasing some extra equipment to minimize the downtime at either one of the pool locations. We're very sensitive of the needs of the swimming community, and we're going to do everything we can to meet the needs until the replacement facility is built. We'll also be addressing therapeutic recreation. We will be moving therapeutic recreation to another community center. We are currently working with the families to address their needs, and we'll have a better facility for them come the fall of the year. Now, as we go into this transition period, we're going to do like a little celebration with the neighborhood of what Old Hampton has meant to the downtown area and the neighborhood as we go through the transition. Now, it's not like there's nothing around this area that they can accommodate. You've got Mary Peak Playground, you've got Y.H. Thomas Community Center, you have Y.H. Thomas Park, which is going under a major renovation, which should be dedicated toward the end of this summer period. And this whole area in the center, basically right at Old Hampton Community Center, like you said, we have Grant Circle Park. We will do the basketball court, we will focus on the tennis court, and we will focus on the use of either Darling Stadium, the Hampton Public Library. Some of our programs may go out to Little England and work with after-school programs out there. So it's not that far away, and we will be working with Ms. Blackwell and Ms. Little to increase neighborhood participation as we go through the planning process. Like the boss said, in January of 2014, we lost the Assembly Hall in Fox Hill and the focus in Fox Hill as to what we're going to do. Because of the wetlands area, we're not able to cost-effectively rebuild at that location. So we explored other opportunities. As you can see on this map, where our locations are, this whole northeastern area is not served. There's no facilities other than athletic fields, Gosling Hood Park, Groveland Creek Park, things of that nature, but there is no active facility as far as a community center or a neighborhood center. During this process, we explored renting space, Will Oak Shopping Center, but that was not cost effective. So we are currently working with Hampton City Schools and see what we can address for a site location at one of the school sites. We did make a presentation to the school board not too long ago, and we hope that we'll get some feedback, if not late summer, early fall, as to where they can work with us on that. So your question is, what is a neighborhood center? Our neighborhood center proposed for these 2 areas is like a multi-use building. It will have a large area. It's under 18,000 square feet. We can use it for stage areas for performances. We can have it for large meeting areas. We can have it for basketball presentations. We can work with human resources and another bunch of programs. We can do culinary programs. We can have a kitchen for fundraising. We can have different classroom spaces to have divided walls. So there's a number of opportunities that we can pursue. This is an example floor plan that I found that I'm using as example with both these neighborhood groups in Old Hampton and in Fox Hill. These areas up here are the classrooms, got divided walls in here that can be separated, a separate classroom. You have your kitchen area and storage area right in here, can serve and do fundraising and support a multitude of civic fundraising groups. Restroom facilities are here. You can use this as a stage. You can have this as a large multi-purpose area. You can have a divided wall. And the examples that we found in other areas of the peninsula, they're well received. So we'll work with that as we go through this process. The neighborhood center plan, and working with both these areas, we will discuss the interior and exterior design of the neighborhood center. developing operating protocols and expectations of the neighborhood center. You have 2 neighborhood centers already in place. You have Y.H. Thomas, which has 20 years' experience in working with the neighborhood. You have seniors that have been involved in the very beginning of this process. You've got a blend of youth that's coming on board and working out there. They're working right now on the park area, so if you were looking at a Class A example of a neighborhood center, that would be it. Newtown is the other neighborhood center that has its challenges right now in working with the neighborhood because they're going through a change process, but hopefully that will be worked out. So we do have 2 examples in place. Like I said, we will be working with Chalet in Old Hampton. We have met with a number of times with the Fox Hill Athletic Association to bring them up to date, and we'll have a strong involvement there. Both the neighborhood centers, both for Old Hampton and Fox Hill, the funding has been in place and it has been established. So as we start this process, almost immediately, we'll be working with the neighborhood associations to work on the design and the exterior components, and each one will be different. And then we'll also be looking at the expectations of the different type of neighborhoods and city staff as what is expected at both locations. Old Hampton will work immediately to do the temporary trailer sites to get them on board before the building is closed. And then we'll be working as a timetable, depending on the aquatic center and the design, but we'll be working on the design right away. Fox Hill area, we have plans, but it really depends on what Hampton City Schools tells us where we can go, and we'll pursue that. But as we go through the process, we'll give you regular feedback. We'll be working with you and the city manager. Laura Fitzpatrick will be leading the team. I'll be supporting her. Kay Trotter, my assistant, will be there, and we'll be working closely with Ms. Blackwell and Ms. Little at Old Hampton as we start the transition. Our first focus will be working with Old Hampton right now. And I'll take any questions you may have.
Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Ms. Smith?
Just one, Mr. Wilson. How do you plan on doing the shuttle back and forth? I mean, are you going to have like set times? Or
We
are you
have,
gonna do
we
it on
have
need
3
basis?
buses. It depends on the different programs and different opportunities. Our staff is looking into utilizing the carousel, but a lot of our programs, for our summer programs, we have 3 buses, 2 large, 1 small, so it just works on the need, and we'll be settling that real soon. But we're gonna just work with the staff and work with the neighborhood to set that up for the fall. So we'll continue the after-school programs offered there and try to expand it to the best of our ability. The building itself will be different. Obviously, the pool will be gone, but we're trying to minimize the inconvenience. Okay? Thank you.
All right, if there are no further questions, we have item 2 on the agenda is a briefing on Dutch dialogue with Matt Smith and Gail Higgs. Madam Manager?
Yes, as Matt's coming up, I believe the council members are all aware, but we certainly wanted to take this opportunity to make the public aware that Hampton has been selected in a joint application between Hampton and Newport News to benefit from what is known as the Dutch Dialogues. It's an effort to help localities in the United States learn from the lessons that the Netherlands experienced in trying to manage and live with the water. And so we're very excited that we get to be a part of this initiative, and we wanted to elaborate a little bit on that publicly. We do have the event coming up here in very short order, and so Matt will tell you all about it.
Good afternoon, council members. As the manager mentioned, next week Hampton Roads will begin hosting what's called a Dutch Dialogue event. And it's a bit of a curious name, but it's a workshop focusing on water management and flood mitigation within the context of planning, urban design, engineering, and economic development. These are pretty prestigious events that have gotten national attention. Most notably, one was held in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. They're hosted by the Dutch Embassy and gather experts from a variety of disciplines from the Netherlands and America to look at water management issues in the region. There are a couple of reasons why we were chosen. One is that Hampton Roads will be one of the regions most impacted by sea level rise on the East Coast. But on the positive side, we're becoming seen as a pioneer in addressing sea level rise and really taking a proactive approach as a region to the issue. The Dutch have been dealing with flood control for pretty much their entire history, and for a good portion of that history, they were focusing on keeping the water out at all costs. But they began to realize that that strategy was having some unintended consequences on their environment and on their cities, and in the 90s began taking an approach that was more towards living with the water when that was possible. So the Dutch dialogues have adopted that philosophy of living with the water, and the purpose is really to develop some creative and holistic concepts for water management. And these concepts can focus on improving resilience, promoting sustainability, enhancing quality of life, and allowing for economic growth. Earlier this year, about 20 sites were originally considered for the focus sites for the event. Members of the Dutch Embassy and another team of some architects that had been participating in these events in the past came to Hampton Roads, toured 5 sites, and 2 were chosen, one in Norfolk and one in Hampton. The Norfolk site is this location here along the eastern branch of the Elizabeth River. It includes the neighborhoods around Tidewater Drive, Harbor Park, and the Chesterfield Heights neighborhood. And our site is the entire New Market Creek watershed, which is quite large. So 2 areas were chosen to focus upon. One downstream towards the confluence with the Back River includes Coliseum Central, and a second site upstream along the border with Newport News in the upstream portion of New Market Creek. One of the reasons this area was of interest is because, as you can see by the blue outline on the map, a good portion of the watershed is within the 100-year floodplain. Also, interestingly, and kind of different than a lot of other sites in Hampton Roads, New Market Creek experiences flooding, riverine flooding and tidal flooding, and it was also interesting that there was a mix of jurisdictions, which is kind of a good regional precedent to set for working together. On the first day of the event, staff will host the New Market Creek work group on a site visit, and to give the group kind of an on-the-ground look at our site, we'll be taking them to the 6 starred sites you see there to get a look at the mouth of the Back Creek, the Back River, and then all the way down to where what's called the government ditch, a diversion from New Market Creek, flows into the James River. So the work group will focus on immediate solutions to problems such as tidal flooding here at Armstead Avenue and flooding from rainfall at the New Market South Shopping Center, but also try to adapt those solutions into larger opportunities. For example, maybe implementing a goal from the master plan for Coliseum Central or providing amenities to citizens. It's a 5-day event. It's going to take place mostly over next weekend, starting on Friday and ending on Tuesday. And the outcome for the final day is a presentation of some strategies and concepts that can be applied to the specific sites, but also have some regional relevance. And we see a variety of benefits to Hampton. One is really just the possibility for creative ideas to some problems we've been dealing with for a long time, but good to get some fresh eyes on it. We also see the potential for some actionable solutions that may be implemented. And maybe most interestingly, continuing to establish a philosophy of resilience here in Hampton as a way to kind of move forward in the 21st century as Hampton being a Chesapeake Bay community. We also see the potential to leverage the work of the Dutch dialogues into something like grant applications in the future, and also increase citizen awareness and education. And I've also provided some links in case anybody wants some more information, and I can answer questions. And Gail Hicks is here as well, and she can help answer any questions.
Questions or comments? Ms. Smith?
Is this mitigation, or is this more or less living with the water that we have? Would you consider it more of mitigation or the otherwise?
Excuse me, what we're doing now or what this event is focusing
The
on?
Dutch dialogue.
This is more of a living with the water approach. And the I guess, primary purpose of anything proposed will be flood mitigation, but also taking that holistic approach to maybe if you can prevent flooding, you can also provide some sort of amenity to citizens as well. So it's kind of a dual approach to water management.
Ms. Sneed?
So are we planning to use this opportunity to get ideas as to how we could enhance the New Market Creek area and whether we're on the right track for what we're proposing to do?
Correct. I
with New
think
Market Creek?
I'm not sure it'll be so much an evaluation of our proposals, although I think that could be incorporated, and we've provided the group plan or information about what we have been doing so they know where we are. But yeah, really, I think it's more about looking at this in a little bit different way and thinking of some new opportunities that, may come back to you all for implementation.
The San Antonio Riverwalk is actually a really good example, and I know we've referenced it a couple of times, but a lot of what they did with the quote-unquote Riverwalk was actually done with some flood mitigation money, and is a really good example of living with the water. They approached, we're going to have a certain amount of water, how do we sort of marshal it to a benefit? And by directing it the way that they did, they alleviated flooding in what would have happened elsewhere, and then made a positive benefit of it. So what we will really get out of this is some of the best thinking available from experts from a country, as Matt said, that has been dealing with this for a very long time, and it will give us new ideas. I mean, some of the ideas may be an affirmation of some of our existing thoughts, but I also hope that we get some new creative, ideas about how do we get the maximum benefit of preventing, flood damage to properties, but also then making something material that can be positive. So it's not just a negative view of the water, but a positive view of the water.
Anything else? Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We'll now reconvene our closed session in the Lawson Conference Room.